the average NBA basketball player's career lasts 4.5 years.
It's not often you think you've seen something you couldn't possibly see in the NBA.
Jeremy Lin came from nothing to greatness.
Nobody thought he could play. He had to fight for everything that he got.
For me, it's been sobering to realize that, and so, hey, what are some other things that I should be thinking about leaning into? What does life after basketball look like? Or how can I kind of take what I've built from the basketball side and then continue to build it? I always thought basketball was the end, but I'm realizing basketball is a means to an end. And sometimes I feel like God doesn't actually care that much about my basketball. He's just using basketball as a way to get to my heart.
You know, he was the top player coming out of California, won a state championship, one of the best players in the Ivy Leagues, and he went undrafted, you know, in the NBA. And then he was picked up by teams and cut by teams. Was sent down to the D League. He has a championship with the Toronto Raptors and everything in between. I think that all of this, God continues to lead him to the opportunities that God is opening doors for. And Jeremy has always been faithful in stepping into this role of, God, where do you have me next, and where can I be pursuing you?
But really, sports has allowed a lot of athletes to get a seat at the table, at tables that way would normally never be invited to. Now it's about how do I leverage that in the right way, and how do I do it in a way where it's not really about myself.
When Jeremy became famous overnight, the way his story lined up so perfectly, and for Linsanity to happen the way that it did, it always felt like such a gift from God to us. And so in forming JLIN LLC, Jeremy and I just set out with the intention that everything that had been gifted, we would hope to use and steward for good. So that would be the celebrity, the publicity, the wealth.
As we think about stewarding what God's given us, there's different forms of capital. There's financial capital, there's familial capital, there's network capital, and there's capital that's associated with being famous. And so when you think about individuals like Jeremy Lin, or individuals like Tim Tebow, or other folks whom God has positioned in very public roles where there are millions and millions of people who follow what those individuals do, those folks are using a different form of capital to be able to catalyze not just their own investing activity, but actually inspire others to come alongside them and join them in that fight.
Ever since I remember, he has always been very philanthropically minded. And I think that's very, very important, even as an investor, just this desire, authentic desire to serve others. And I thought it'd be interesting for him to learn a little bit more about the possibility of the good that his investment assets can do also.
When we talk about conviction, I think Jeremy had a conviction very early on around generosity. This idea that none of this was his. There was never a feeling of, I need to hold on to this, or I need to see it grow a certain way. That is where, you know, we have to come back to a lot, like where did we feel God leading us to at the time? And what that brought is not always what the world looks at and thinks like that's what an athlete should do in that moment, but none of this can work without that generosity of spirit and that willingness to try that out on Jeremy's end.
So he's always been good and wise about his earnings and savings and how he wants to invest in that. Over time, that has shifted to more of this concept of investing in to see some sort of return, whether that's financial, spiritual, cultural impact. And he's really come to embrace that. So much so as he's really built out the team now, Robert in particular, who's brought on full-time to help be really intentional about what that looks like, especially in Asia.
Our team slowly introduced examples of how investments or how companies can serve those who lack access to basic services like education or healthcare or financial services or even housing. And so this idea of philanthropy and investment assets working together is really what triggered in his mind that's the redemptive possibility.
A lot of people, when they think about this, they're just like, when I have enough, when I have a arbitrary amount, let's say I have this much in the bank, I'll start thinking more about philanthropy or about impact investing or whatever, right? And I think that's dangerous because I've always kind of felt like impact investing or doing good for the world, it's not like a switch. It's not like a switch that, well, I got 6 figures in my bank account or 7 figures, I'll turn that switch on. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, it's a discipline. And, you know, I think that's something that my mom really ingrained in us, is even though we didn't always have that much, we still had other things that we could give to people, and she made sure that she instilled that in us, whether it's our time, our talents, our encouragement, whatever it was. Like, and so that is a lifestyle that builds into, now that I have wealth, I'm able to also think like, how can I use this for the betterment of the world and for others?
And, you know, traditionally, if you look at any endowments or family offices, there's an investment team and a philanthropic team. And they rarely talk to each other because those two have different objectives. Increasingly, more and more families and investors, including Jeremy, are realizing that those two can talk to each other, and they both can be run in a mission or values-driven way. But there's a lot of, you know, investors out there who operate sort of under this one pocket mindset.
So having Robert and Patricia is huge. When I first came out, I had always done things differently. I had always blazed my own trail. I had always gone off to the side. And I realized, like, along the way, 1, that's exhausting. 2, it's way less effective. There came a point halfway through my career where I was like, I am no longer looking to do things on my own and start things from scratch. What I'm really looking for is like a river guide or a great partner, a value-aligned partner, somebody who is an expert at what they do and sees things the way that I see them.
But the beauty of a team is that we all come from different backgrounds. We all have different giftings. And I may be able to see something that others don't, and vice versa. I oftentimes don't see things that Patricia or Jeremy may see. And what we've learned over the years building this investing company is it's all about execution, right? And it's all about trust building. It's all about relationship. And those things take a ton of discerning, a collective discerning, as well as teamwork.
People are drawn to excellence, and there's a lot about being an athlete and training and performing that is similar to running a company. You train, you perform, and you want to be able to keep company that has also had experience doing that and is currently doing that and committed to that. And so I think that the presence and engagement of athletes and other notable celebrities that are wading in not just with capital but also with their own brand, their name, their image, their likeness, I think it represents a big opportunity, and I feel like we're probably still in the first inning of what ultimate development of that looks like.
Under the JLIN brand, I mean, we've been doing this for 14 years now. There's obviously the athlete portion, there's the off-the-court endorsements, whether it's the shoe line, the clothing line, or all the other endorsements that we have. And then there's the storytelling arm. And then we have the Capital Studio, which is focused on impact investing. And then there's the philanthropic arm. These 5 arms are what we have built the brand around. I've kind of been called to steward money, and if I want to continue to do that and I want to run the race of life well, like, this is a great way that I feel like I can continue to do that for years and decades.